There's something really wholesome about the StreamYard intro music with the countdown. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 5?
Something like that.
Of the rundown with Payton. Let's see. We're going into week 6, so we missed a week. Episode 5, yeah. Episode 5 of the rundown with Payton and Marcus. Payton Doyle died last night, came back to life. What's up, man? How you doing?
I was a game time decision going into today. Glad I'm feeling better. I couldn't even talk. It's hard to do a podcast when you can't talk, you know.
But it's not even hard. It's actually what's the word we're looking for? It's impossible to do a podcast.
Well, nothing's impossible. I could have learned sign language, but I'm glad that I didn't have to do that because that would have been beyond my skill set.
Yeah. I mean, it's always nice to kind of get here and talk to Payton and get stuff going. There's a lot to talk about. For the first time, we get to talk some basketball, like some real basketball on the show, not the nasty other stuff. Like, we get to talk some real good basketball on the show today because the NBA season starts on Tuesday, which is insane to think about. The NBA season is here. The last time we watched basketball was Game 6 of the NBA Finals, and the Golden State Warriors defeated the Boston Celtics to win their 4th NBA championship in 8 years, their 4th in 6 playoff appearances. So to kick off the show, we are going to play This or That NBA edition because why not? Payton, first things up, this or that. 2-time league MVP Nikola Jokic, or should be 2-time league MVP Joel Embiid?
Listen, I like Jokic going into this year better just because I think that the Nuggets are a better team than the 76ers. I think that when healthy, the Nuggets are a better team than the 76ers this year. Jokic balled out last year, and I know that you didn't think that he should have won MVP over Joel Embiid. I think it's outrageous to say that Nikola Jokic didn't deserve the MVP. If you thought that, Embiid
should have won,
I know you might not say that, but there's a lot of people that say Jokic should just didn't deserve it. Jokic deserved the MVP. Whether or not you think that he deserved it more than Joel Embiid deserved it is another question. Nikola Jokic is a 2-time MVP, like you said, and he plays the center position in a way that not many have ever played it before. I think he's on the better team, and I would rather have him than Joel Embiid this year. Yeah.
Okay, are you basing your picking Jokic over Embiid because he's an MVP, or are you basing it off of because he has the better team? Like, I don't think you have.
I mean, both. I'm basing it off of he scores not as much as Embiid, but
you put Jokic on the Sixers. Do the Sixers go further in the East than they do with Embiid?
No, they do the exact same. I think they do the exact same.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think. I think if you put Embiid on the Nuggets, it's just about the same too.
I don't think so. I think if you put Embiid on the Nuggets are a championship contending basketball team in the Western Conference, and like a legitimate one, not one of those ones where we kind of say like, yeah, this could be their year. Like, we would rank the Nuggets as one of the best teams in the West, one of the best teams in basketball with Joel Embiid. If Joel Embiid's in Denver instead of Philly,
are they not one of the best teams in basketball right now? Like, they're projected to be the second seed in the West.
They are arguably one of the best teams in basketball. They are not undeniably one of the best teams in basketball. I think you put Joel Embiid on the Nuggets go from being a borderline best team in basketball to being a legitimate best team in basketball. Right? I feel the same way about like if you take a team, the Cavs, for instance, right? The Cavs without Donovan Mitchell are a borderline play-in basketball team, right? The Cavs with Donovan Mitchell are a lock to make the playoffs every year as long as they're healthy. Like, that is the difference to me, right? Like, if you take Steph and put Steph somewhere else, right? That team's status elevates to where they are undeniable. I don't think Jokic is one of those players where you take him, put him somewhere else, and he elevates the new team status to being undeniably one of the best teams in basketball. I think you can put Embiid on the Nuggets, and the Nuggets wouldn't just be the 3rd seed in the West, but they would be legitimately like, we look at this team and say, this team's floor is the Western Conference Finals. I don't think we've ever said that about the Nuggets, and I think that's the difference. And I think that's why Embiid is better than Jokic.
For me, with the whole Embiid and Jokic competition, it's a reasonable debate because they play the same position, but they don't play the same game. They play two different styles of basketball, which both are great. And I just would rather have Jokic's style of play with the way that he can facilitate the ball and pass the ball, rather than Embiid's very physical and down low play. Both of them work, and both of them have been proven to win NBA championships. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love Joel Embiid, but if you're just asking me, I give the slight edge to Jokic just because I like the passing ability. I think that it's interesting. It interests me more than Embiid. And Embiid is like, I'd rather watch Embiid play. Embiid impresses me more on the court. But in terms of every statistic, Jokic, I know you're looking at me funny because I just like tripped over my words there for a second and might have contradicted myself. But please try to understand what I'm saying.
You are taking Joel Embiid impresses you more, but you're taking Jokic over.
All right, but I'll say this. And Russell Westbrook impressed me. If there was a player that I would go watch and had fun watching, Russell Westbrook would be one of them. But he's not the best point guard in the NBA. He never was. Well, at least not for a long period of time.
Not the same thing.
No, but I'm saying he's impressive to watch. Like, he's very aggressive, and I like his style of play. I like watching it on television and in person. I would enjoy watching it. Same with Embiid. Jokic is a little bit more boring because he's just kind of, he's not a very athletic guy. He's just kind of
not as good as a defender, but I mean, okay.
Well, yeah, that too. But and then again, no one really watches defense in the NBA, if we're being honest. But I'm just saying I would prefer Jokic's ability to pass the ball and facilitate the offense and almost play as like a point center at times than Embiid's down low style of play.
That's fair. There's two teams that are expected to make a lot of noise, but we don't really know if they're going to make a lot of noise because they've both been dealing with injury. We haven't seen either team play much together when healthy. So Clippers or Nets, who do you think goes farther this season?
Man, Clippers or Nets? I have no faith in either team, but I would say I have more faith in the Clippers because they have a better coach and they have more depth than the Nets do. And I get that, you're going to give me the whole spiel of Kevin Durant's the best player on earth. And Kyrie Irving is great, but like, we never know when he's going to go take a weird like vacation to like some random island somewhere or some mountain. And Ben Simmons also, I don't believe in him. I get that he's like leading the Sixers in rebounds and assists in the preseason, but he's also averaging like 5 points per game. Like, dude,
you need to score.
Yeah, you could give me all that, bro, but like when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, you need to be able to put the ball in the basket, and Ben Simmons cannot put the ball in the basket.
On the team, and when you're on the team with when you're on a team with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, putting the ball in the basket isn't something that you really need to do.
Is it really not something that you need to do? Because we saw it fail last year because no one else could put the ball in the basket but Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant.
The greatest scorer of all time, and you have the guy that has arguably one of the deepest bags, if not the deepest bag offensively as far as ball handling and shooting and the ability to play make and all that stuff is concerned ever in the history of basketball, and Kyrie Irving. Ben Simmons not being able to put the ball in the basket is not as big of an issue in Brooklyn as it was in Philly when the only guy that could consistently put the ball in the basket in Philly was Joel Embiid. Like, Ben Simmons, I agree with you. He should. I expect Ben Simmons to average 12 and 10 this year. I think he should be a lock for at least 10 to 15 points a night. But if Ben Simmons goes out there and is not putting up 10 points a night, I'm not going to slaughter him, especially if we're talking about a team that has Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, two of the greatest offensive players the game has ever seen. They're very prolific. They can shoot from anywhere. Kevin Durant is a unicorn in its own right. Kyrie Irving's fantastic when he's obviously playing basketball, of course. But I don't think Ben Simmons this season, his lack of ability to put the ball in the basket is going to be as glaringly disappointing and as glaringly obvious as it was in Philly. Because in Philly, it was just Joel Embiid and him. He's the third option on this team.
That's fair, and I agree with that. It's not going to be as glaringly bad but I still think it is an issue to some extent. Plus, the Nets we've already seen the recipe not work. We've seen it not work with Durant and Kyrie and the depth they have on that team. We've seen it be problematic. We've seen Steve Nash not live up to the expectations, and this whole experiment in Brooklyn has not lived up to the expectations. The Clippers, they haven't necessarily lived up to expectations either.
Well, it's not necessarily they haven't. Kawhi and Paul George went to LA, and we got the commercial of Kawhi with the New Balance commercial, and he's saying he's the king of LA now. And you got Pat Bev telling, when he was a Clipper, telling Steph Curry that the last 5 years the last 5 years was Steph's, and the next 5 is going to be his, and they did absolutely nothing. They haven't been to a conference finals, I don't think, since they've had Paul. Like they've been an utter disappointment. This isn't they failed. This is a failure, an abject failure is what it's been in LA. But no one wants to talk about it because everyone wants to focus on the Brooklyn Nets and the abject failure that's been, as if the Clippers haven't also been, I would say, an even bigger abject failure maybe than the Nets.
I wouldn't say an even bigger one because we all knew that they were going to have trouble in the West, especially when LeBron went to LA as well. I would say we thought that, at least I did, when Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving teamed up in Brooklyn, I was like, this is it. They're easily winning the championship. Now, I get that they had injuries their first year together, and then the whole James Harden thing didn't work out, and things happen. And we've talked about this before. I'm not putting this on Kevin Durant. I'm not putting this on Kyrie Irving. I'm not putting this on everyone. Just stuff has happened, and it just hasn't worked out. And it's the same thing in LA. Kawhi got hurt. Paul George sucks in the playoffs. Things haven't worked out in LA. Things haven't worked out in Brooklyn. I don't necessarily have faith in either of these teams to contend for the finals this year. But if you're asking me which one do I like better, I think I would rather have the Clippers than the Nets this year.
All right. Last one before we talk about our way too early NBA Finals graphics. I mean, who's KD or Giannis?
You're gonna hate me for this. I'm going with Giannis. I think Giannis is the most dominant player in the NBA. I think that he has proven that these past 2 and 3 years. While I think Kevin Durant is still great, and that's the thing, is that I always feel like sometimes when you say good about another player, it means you're dissing another player. I think Kevin Durant is awesome. I think he's spectacular. I think he's a very close to Giannis. But Giannis just seems to have that. KD, see, here's the thing with KD. KD is really, really good all the time. He's really good all the time. Giannis is really good all the time, but he does elevate. I just feel like he has it in him where he takes over games. I don't see Kevin Durant take over games. I see him do it, and he can do it. He's more than capable of doing it. He does it all the time. Giannis does it a little bit more, in my opinion. And I think it showed in the playoffs last year. Giannis was the only reason that they almost beat the Eastern Conference champions.
They weren't going to beat the Celtics.
They almost did. They had a 3-2 lead. And then you had Jason Tatum played like, I don't know, the best player in the history of basketball in Game 6. And then the Celtics balled out in Game 7. So right now I'm going with Giannis. He's the best player on a better team. And I think he's more physically dominant. However, I like KD's style in terms of the modern NBA.
I'm not going to argue with you about the dominance, but I am going to tell you you're wrong about Giannis being better than KD. I just don't. That's just not. It's just not true. It's just not. There is like one game life on the line. There's one player I'd take in the league today that's not Kevin Durant. That's LeBron James. But Kevin Durant is undeniably the best player, I would say, in the NBA, and he's absolutely the best player in the world. But it's fine. Giannis is, as you said, a very close second to KD. Let's talk about, it's October, right? Finals obviously in June, but the season does start next Tuesday. If you had to pick right now the two teams that are going to represent the East and the West, respectively, in the NBA Finals come season's end, who is going to be in the finals and who's going to win the finals?
In the West, I have Golden State making it out again. I just thought about the West, and I couldn't find a team that I thought was more convincing as a pick than the Warriors. I'm not, like I said, I think the Nuggets are going to be good. I'm not sold on the Nuggets. I'm not sold on the Timberwolves and getting Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, the Timberwolves
I'm not sold on the Suns ever, especially after they've let me down after I've picked them the past 2 years to make it out of the West. I'm not sold on them anymore. The most reliable pick in the West is the Golden State Warriors. Now in the East, I'm going to go with the Bucks to make it back. I think they would have made it last year had Chris Middleton stayed healthy. I think assuming that they all stay healthy, the Bucks will make it out of the East this year. It'll be Milwaukee versus Golden State.
I agree, and the Warriors are going to win their 5th championship in 9 years, and then that's just going to be the way it goes. It's very hard to see a scenario where the Bucks can beat the Warriors in the finals. I just don't see it. So, again, NBA season tips off next Tuesday, and it's going to be great. Let's talk about some football. I think probably the best way to start would be to just talk about the fact that Matt Rhule has been fired by the Carolina Panthers after, what was it, a 1-4 start to the season. Luckily for Matt Rhule, though, he's going to get paid like $8.3. That's what is it, like $830,000 a month now for the next 48 months. So good for him, I guess.
Yeah, he's not that mad.
But we're talking about. You've heard a lot of people kind of say that maybe this might be the beginning of a fire sale for Carolina. Do you think the Panthers are open for business and we can see some players on the move?
I don't think so. I think Carolina likes what they have. I mean, they have a nice young core on defense. You know, obviously McCaffrey, he's like kind of aging, but he's still a good player. And I think they're looking towards the future. Obviously, they know that it's no longer Baker Mayfield, like they had that pipe dream that it was going to be. It's not Sam Darnold, and it's certainly not PJ Walker, with all due respect. So I think the Panthers right now are just bracing for impact, hoping that they get the number 1 overall pick and either selecting CJ Stroud or Bryce Young number 1 overall and getting their quarterback of the future, finding a head coach and moving on. I don't think they're going to do this whole fire sale rebuild like everyone is imagining. I do think McCaffrey could be dealt under the right price, but that's only because he's a running back and he no longer fits their timeline of their rebuild anymore. But I don't think they're just going to start getting rid of everybody imaginable. I do think, like I said, like the older veteran players, they might be on the move, but the young guys that are fitting their timeline, no, they're not going to be traded for another draft pick to get another young guy.
So you don't. So you think DJ Moore and Brian Burns and guys like that aren't going anywhere?
Not right now. I don't see it right now. No, I think if anyone gets moved, it's McCaffrey, and that's only because he would attract number one, he would attract obviously the most on the trade market out of all these guys. So he would actually get you like good value for the trade. And he also doesn't fit your timeline because he's already, as a running back, he's already in the twilight of his prime.
Sure.
Same. So he needs to go to a team that is contending. The Panthers aren't contending anytime soon within the next 5 years.
Well, the Panthers aren't going to be contending anytime ever. But if McCaffrey is to be moved, where is he going?
Buffalo should really be calling. And I know that's like the number one team that everyone has been talking about. And we hear that there's been like no talks between them, but Buffalo should be calling because that's add Christian McCaffrey to Buffalo and it's done.
Well, I mean, it's done now. The Buffalo Bills are going to win the Super Bowl this year. I feel like I've been saying that for about 8 months now, and I'll just keep saying it until it happens. Let's then NFC. Let's talk about the NFC East, which has seemingly resurrected from its
been shocking
mediocrity, but it's been a lot worse than mediocre the past couple of years. The Eagles obviously undefeated at 5-0. Both the Cowboys and the Giants are both 4-1, and no one really cared about the Commanders who are 1-4. But there's a big game in the NFC East this week, Sunday Night Football. Eagles host the Cowboys. The division for now, relatively, is on the line in that game. If Dallas wins that game, they'll assume first place because they'll have beaten all 3 division opponents. And the Eagles will drop to 1-1 in the division, which will move down to second place. We both have the Eagles winning the game, according to our pick'em graph, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But who needs this win more? Is it the Eagles to remain undefeated, or is it the Cowboys to improve to 5-1 heading into the bye?
This is going to be an interesting take on this. The Cowboys need to lose this game. It's in the Cowboys' best interest to lose against the Eagles on Sunday night. And here's why. If Cooper Rush wins the game, they're going to stick with Cooper Rush. This team is, I get that Cooper Rush is winning, but this team is infinitely better with Dak Prescott at quarterback. And I get that he looked bad in week 1. But if Dak Prescott is 100% healthy, you cannot have this quarterback controversy of, oh, well, Cooper hasn't lost. We can't bench him. We need Dak to we need Dak to sit on the bench. No. Dak Prescott is a better quarterback than Cooper Rush. Therefore, you need to have no excuse to leave Cooper Rush out there. You can't have a quarterback controversy. Dak Prescott needs to be the starting quarterback when he's back healthy. So therefore, Cooper Rush has to lose eventually.
Wait, the Eagles need this one more, but now, damn that. I want to talk about something else. I feel like more times in the last month and a half, almost a month, have I defended and supported the Dallas Cowboys than I ever have in my life. It's a little weird, but to my friends and to my family and to Cowboys fans alike that are watching this, I'll give you guys this win, and I'll go to bat for you guys here for a second. Can we stop doing this quarterback controversy thing with the Dallas Cowboys because of Cooper Rush? Like, when Drew Brees broke his thumb or whatever it was a couple years ago and Teddy Bridgewater won 4 straight games for the Saints, we didn't sit here and say that there was a QB controversy in New Orleans because Teddy Bridgewater's undefeated. No, because we all knew that when Drew Brees came back, he was going to assume his starting role, right? This happens. Quarterbacks go down and sometimes the backups do well, right? We didn't think there was we did, but for different reasons. But like when Nick Foles took the Eagles to the Super Bowl after Carson Wentz went down, we weren't going into the next season talking about how maybe there's a QB controversy in Philly. No, Carson Wentz assumed the role as a starting quarterback come week 1 the next season because we all recognize that Carson Wentz is the better. I don't know if it's because it's the Cowboys. I don't know if it's because it's Dak Prescott. I don't know if it's because it's Jerry Jones. I don't know if it's both, but we need to stop acting like Cooper Rush is better than Dak Prescott, A. And B, we need to stop acting like the Dallas Cowboys are going to win more games and go further in the NFC, go further in the NFL this season with Cooper Rush as the quarterback. That's not the point. The issue that we have right now is we have confused Cooper Rush's winning with Kellen Moore not trying to be cute. That's all that's happened. When you have a shiny new toy or when you have a really good quarterback, you try to do things that are too cute and too crazy and it backfires. That's what Kellen Moore has done for the last, what has it been, 6 years since Dak Prescott's been in the NFL, which is kind of crazy to think about. This is not a Cooper Rush versus Dak Prescott thing. This is a Kellen Moore versus Kellen Moore issue. Kellen Moore recognizes that because Cooper Rush doesn't have the arm talent, because he doesn't have the mobility, because he is not as gifted physically and also just in general as a quarterback as Dak Prescott, that he can't do the naked bootlegs. He can't do these crazy RPOs and all the other stuff we kind of seen him do with Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys over the past couple of years. Now, luckily for them, that's resulted to them winning. And while Cooper Rush hasn't turned the ball over at all since he's been playing quarterback this season, this offense hasn't been terrific. This offense has been rather pedestrian at best. The Cooper Rush is undefeated because Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys defense has been wreaking havoc over the last, what has it been, 4, almost now 5 weeks that Cooper Rush has been the starter for Dallas. So we need to relax on the quarterback controversy thing because here's the thing. Dak, and I firmly believe this, Dak Prescott, Kellen Moore, Mike McCarthy, Jerry Jones, the entire Dallas Cowboys organization, if Kellen Moore can lock in and not panic and go back to doing all this crazy fancy stuff when Dak returns, because he's going to come back. He's going to come back healthy. We're going to see Dak Prescott play football again this season, and it's going to be whenever he's healthy, not because Cooper Rush starts losing. Whenever Dak returns, if Kellen Moore sticks to the game plan that he has been calling and the way that he's been producing so far in this season with Cooper Rush, I get it. There might be 1 or 2 games of rust because Dak hasn't played since week 1. I get all that. All that stuff aside, if Dak comes back and he gets those 2 games of rust off and he comes back to form the way we know him to be as what I think is the top 10 quarterback, Dak Prescott, I can't even about to say this, Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys floor this season, if Kellen Moore sticks with what he's been doing, is the Super Bowl, honestly. And seriously, because when you look at the NFC, right? I've sold my Saints stock 2 weeks ago. They're done. The Vikings, done. Like the Bucks don't really have it. No one trusts the Cardinals. The 49ers are a maybe, and that's because they're the 49ers and because they're built to do crazy things, even with Jimmy G. The Rams are 2-3. They've looked terrible. No one wants to talk about it because everyone likes to crap on the Bengals. But guess what? The Rams are terrible too. The defending Super Bowl champions are in the bottom 5 of points per game in the NFL. No one wants to talk about it. They average 16.3 points a game. That is terrible. Like my Packers aren't really looking good right now. And I know the Eagles are undefeated, and maybe the Eagles might have something to say about this, and we'll kind of see on Sunday in primetime. But the Dallas Cowboys, I think, if Kellen Moore doesn't panic and go back to doing all the fancy, cute stuff that he thinks he has to do because Dak is the quarterback, if Kellen Moore can keep it simple, the way he's kept it simple these past few weeks with Cooper Rush, and the defense continues to perform the way they've performed, the Dallas Cowboys can go to the Super Bowl this season. And this isn't one of those things where like how Cowboys fans say it's always their year, or how we kind of always clown about how the Cowboys have the talent. No, the Dallas Cowboys this season, in a very lackluster NFC, given what I've seen from Kellen Moore so far through 4 weeks of Cooper Rush football this season, could very well make it to the Super Bowl this year, as long as he doesn't go back to doing all the crazy stuff he was doing before Dak got hurt, as far as play calling and stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you're right. It's 100% in play calling. This is an offense that needs to be run first. This is a team that is going to beat you by running the football and playing good defense. Now, if you add Dak Prescott to the mix and you don't go doing all this willy-nilly stuff, you stick to your bread and butter and you let Dak make the plays when he has to make the plays, the Cowboys are going to be very, very good this year.
Yeah, super good. Now, from one team that should sustain their success to another team that has looked god-awful so far 5 weeks. The Denver Broncos are 2-3. This is a team that was crowned in the offseason as potentially making it to the Super Bowl. And they've had one of the worst offenses in football. They've had one of the worst defenses in football. They have the worst red zone offense in football. How concerned should we be about the Denver Broncos heading into week 6?
Extremely concerned. What happened on Thursday night was atrocious. That was a monstrosity. Russell Wilson isn't seeing wide open receivers in the end zone. That didn't just happen last week. That happened against the Texans as well. Russell Wilson is playing like his head screwed on backwards. I mean, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. We all thought Russell Wilson was this great quarterback, and oh my gosh, and this and that. Geno Smith looks like an upgrade in Seattle. It looks like the Seahawks got better by going from Russell Wilson to Geno Smith. That's how bad Russell Wilson is playing, and also how good Geno Smith is playing. I'll give him some credit. But I mean, this is ridiculous. Nathaniel Hackett is really struggling as a head coach in the NFL. And the Broncos, you're in a tough division. You're in the toughest conference in football. You don't have a lot of time to figure things out. You either get it or you don't. The Broncos are going to miss the playoffs this year. They're not going to have a winning record like I thought they would have. I didn't see them being atop that division. I thought they'd at least squeak out a winning record. They're not even going to be close. They just gave Russell Wilson $250 million. That doesn't look like a very great bargain right now. The Broncos need to turn things around. I'm extremely concerned with what is going on there. This offense sucks. They're in the bottom 5 in almost any which way you could draw it up. I get that Javonte Williams was injured, but all I heard all year was, the Broncos, they have such great depth. Yeah, Melvin Gordon's still there. This offense sucks. The Broncos stink. Nathaniel Hackett is a flop. Russell Wilson is washed. The Broncos should be concerned.
6-7 months ago, when I told the world that the Broncos were going to be dead last in the AFC West, and when I told the world that the Broncos were going to have 8 wins in the division, and when I told the world that Nathaniel Hackett is not going to be a good head coach, and when I told the world that Russell Wilson is not going to cook, Stevie A. Smith laughed at me, Justin Marvel laughed at me, fans that watch the show laughed at me, people on my Twitter mentions laughed at me. People in my comments on YouTube laughed at me. I got a lot of laughter. Some friends laughed at me too. It's week 5. I get it. They're 2-3. The only reason they're not dead last in the division is because they happen to have a game against the Houston Texans that they somehow managed to win. This team, if we're being completely honest, should be winless. This team has looked terrible through 5 weeks. They have 2 wins. One of them against the Texans, a game they should have lost. And the other one is against the Raiders, a team that is 1-4. The Broncos suck. They are disgustingly bad. And I had to sit through an entire offseason of listening to Justin and Steezy and Broncos fans and Mike Greenberg and Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless and all these talking heads and fans and podcasters are like, sit here and try to sell me on this pipe dream that the Denver Broncos would be contending for a Super Bowl this season. Right now, the Broncos are contending for the first pick in the draft next season. The Broncos are disgustingly bad. Like extremely, 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 extremely bad. And here's the problem, because it's not just a Nathaniel Hackett problem, and it's not just a Russell Wilson problem. It's a personnel issue. And I wonder who spent an entire offseason explaining that the personnel of the Denver Broncos does not lend itself to Super Bowl contention. Oh, wait, that was me. Because Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, no matter what everyone likes to believe, is not that much of an upgrade from DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett.
Downgrade.
Which is the same thing that I said. You look at Javonte Williams. I love him. I think he's fantastic. He is superb and a really good back. I can't wait to see him come back next season and play a full season of football. But Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon is a rather lackluster 1-2 punch in the backfield. We already know Russ doesn't like to pass to his tight ends. We saw that a lot this season. The O-line, not that good. I sat here and I told everybody that just because the talent is there defensively doesn't mean that the success is going to transfer because they have a new DC. And what happened so far? This defense has not been that good this season. The Denver Broncos are god-awful. They're abysmal. It is unfortunate that we have to watch Denver Bronco football this season because they look terrible. Now, I don't know if they can come back from this season because it's too late. Because you look at the division, the Chiefs are what, 4-1? The Chargers are 3-2, I think, and or something like that. Like this division is supposed to be stacked, and it's not that stacked because the Raiders have looked terrible. But the Denver Broncos were crowned in the offseason as being a Super Bowl contender, and Russell was going to have the Broncos follow the trend of a big-name quarterback moving to a new team and winning the Super Bowl. And so far, it ain't happening. There's not a lot of times in NFL history that a team that started off the season 2-3 has made the playoffs. Even fewer times in NFL history has a team started off the season 2-3, made it to the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure never, ever has a team started off 2-3, made it to and won the Super Bowl. History is not on Denver's side. And no matter what you want to say about how good of a quarterback Russ is, don't be wrong. Russ is a Hall of Fame quarterback, no doubt about it. He's not been playing like a Hall of Fame quarterback so far through 5 weeks of the season. And if I have to sit up here and I have to listen to talking heads and podcasters and fans nitpick every little thing that Aaron Rodgers says about wide receivers or hinting at retirement, you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to sit here on the rundown with Payton and Marcus tonight and nitpick about how terrible Russell Wilson has been, because I need us to start keeping that same energy. You want to sit here, you want to talk about how Aaron Rodgers didn't play in the preseason and that's why things aren't going where they're going. Let's hold Russ accountable. Russ hasn't looked good at all. And I get that they're trying to throw it there and say, oh, he's had a shoulder injury in his throwing arm. I don't care about that because an injury is one thing. Decision-making is a complete different thing. And so far through 5 weeks, Russell Wilson has been a bottom 3 decision maker at the quarterback position so far this season. And he might just be the worst decision maker so far in the 2022-23 NFL season as it stands heading into week 6 in about 20 minutes. It hasn't been good for the Broncos so far, and I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon. So as my friend Peyton would say, stick a fork in them. The Broncos are done. Like, easy. They are done.
I agree. And another thing is this. Why are we not talking about Russell Wilson as a leader? Like, this is he's getting like, I get that Russ was always corny, right? Russ was always, oh, he's a little goofy guy, right? No, he's just silly, Mr. whatever he called himself.
Mr. Unlimited.
Yeah, Unlimited. There we go. Mr. Unlimited. Yeah, well, he's just a corny guy. No, this actually isn't working towards leading a football team. This guy comes in, he gets a $250 million contract, doesn't play in the preseason while having to learn a new offense, live in a new city, and do all this. You need to go and play with your new teammates in these preseason games. Why are we not talking about that? And now you have him, after losing on Thursday Night Football, not scoring a single touchdown, missing the game-winning throw to a wide-open KJ Hamler, who he didn't even see. KJ Hamler clearly is upset. Melvin Gordon's looking at him like his head screwed on sideways on the sidelines. And he goes, Broncos country, let's ride, at the end of the interview. How are we not talking about this? No teammate in the world is going to respect that. Nobody. Your team is struggling and you're still being a goofball. Tighten up, Russ. This is not a joke. This is serious. You just got paid the biggest contract on your team. You didn't play in the preseason. Your teammates barely know you. You're supposed to be the savior quarterback that's going to rise this franchise up from out of the rubble and take them to the Super Bowl. And you're playing like this, and you're still saying, Broncos country, let's ride, at the end of these Thursday Night Football interviews after you failed to score a touchdown. Grow up, dude.
Last thing I'll say before we go into our pick and graph and get out of here. I made a very bold statement that over these next 7 years, Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos will not win one Super Bowl in the next 7 years. And that will be the worst investment we've seen in a quarterback probably in a very long time, if not ever. I'm going to double down on that. The Denver Broncos aren't going to step foot on a Super Bowl football field in the next 7 years. And this will go down as probably one of the worst investments, long-term investments from a quarterback position in arguably the history of the National Football League. Now, with that being said, it is week 6, which means the pick'em challenge is upon us. We've got like 12 minutes until kickoff for Thursday Night Football. Before we get into this week's picks, let's talk about last week's picks. I closed the gap. I am 1 game behind Payton now this week. Payton, for some reason, has this undying infatuation to pick against the Cowboys. He picked against the Cowboys 2 weeks ago when they played the Giants, then again last week when they played the Commanders, and of course this week when they played the Rams, and that's kind of got me back into it. And so, Payton, I appreciate you for just not thinking with your head, but just trying to live pipe dreams. So, as you can see, Payton is 43-36-1. I am 42-37-1. I have a 1-game advantage prime time, but Payton has a 2-game advantage head-to-head. Entering this week, again, 1 game behind, and I did make one last-minute change to one of my picks. I don't know if Payton can figure out which one it is, but Payton and I are disagreeing on 2 games. Patriots at Browns. Payton has the Patriots. I have the Browns. So I was actually kind of shocked to see that Payton picked against his Browns at home against the Patriots, who are playing with their third-string QB. I have the Jaguars. Payton has the Colts, which was the second half of that monstrosity of a Thursday Night Football game this past season. Raiders, Lions, Texans, and Titans are all on a bye, which means there's only 14 games this week for Payton and I to pick. Payton, forget the Jaguars-Colts game. That one's not as interesting to me. Why are you picking the Patriots over your Cleveland Browns?
Because every time the Patriots play the Browns, Bill Belichick stomps the crap out of the Browns. And it doesn't matter who's playing at quarterback. It doesn't matter. The Patriots could be a worse team than the Browns, and he owns Kevin Stefanski for all I'm concerned. The Browns and the Patriots play like every single year. They lose like 45-0 every single year. And it's ridiculous. I don't care who's at quarterback. I don't care that it's Bailey Zappi. I don't care. And I just don't have faith in the Browns anymore. I get that they played a close game with the Chargers. Then they've been playing close with everybody. But this defense can't stop anyone right now. They really are giving up way too many points. And I get that Nick Chubb's great and all that, but Jacoby Brissett is not enough. Jacoby Brissett is not enough at quarterback for the Browns. Bill Belichick is going to make Jacoby Brissett wish that he hadn't played on Sunday, because we all know how Bill Belichick is going to coach against his former players. And we all know how he has coached against the Browns in the past. It's not looking good for the Browns this Sunday. I'd rather just pick the Patriots, and then if the Browns win, cool. I'm happy anyways, even though I was wrong.
I don't like the way you make your picks. Listen, this is what I will say. The Browns are the better football team. I think they have the better defense. I think Nick Chubb's the best player on either team, and he's going to get his. So again, NFL Week 6 pick'em. Peyton has a 1-game lead on me. Peyton, depending on how things go, we're either going to be tied at with the same record. Peyton will be up by 3, or I'll be up by 1. That is how the cookie is going to crumble. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So it's been great. Thursday Night Football kicks off in 9 minutes. No one's going to watch it. Don't blame you. The game I changed was the Commanders and the Bears because I realized, I'll be honest, I will admit this on the show. It's not because I think the Commanders are going to win. It's because if I lose one game to Peyton, it won't be the most meaningful. It won't be because it won't be the most meaningless game of the week. So I just pick the Commanders. If the Bears win, that'll suck a little bit because I originally picked them. But if the Commanders win, that's cool. I get to stay there with Peyton. I wouldn't be able to live with myself that at the end of week 6, I'm still behind to Peyton on the Pick'em challenge because I let the most meaningless game of the week decide my fate. So that's pretty much the decision making as to why I did what I did there. If you don't like it, I don't really care. It is what it is. So for Peyton Doyle, this is Marcus signing off the rundown with Peyton and Marcus. I would say go enjoy some football, but no one's going to watch this game unless you're a Bears fan or a Commanders fan. So enjoy the rest of your night. We'll be back here next week, same time, same place, same channel, to recap opening night of basketball and, of course, to talk about week 6 of the NFL season. So enjoy the rest of your nights, eat some dinner, lift some weights, do what you got to do. We'll see you right back here next Thursday, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time sharp. You guys have a good night.